Have you ever told your child to wake up, eat breakfast, brush your teeth, basically just get ready and expected them to follow the routine and they can't? Instead, you go to their room and you find them playing with a toy. Maybe you ask them to do their homework. You thought it would take 15 minutes. It ended up being a 2-hour battle. You're constantly repeating yourself, the same instructions over and over and over again. And you're wondering, why can't they just do what I asked? If any of that sounds familiar, you're not the only one this happens to. I'm a special education teacher. I see kids lose track of tasks, struggle with starting tasks, and even need help finishing them. I hear parents tell me this happens at home too. Today, I'm going to walk you through 3 everyday situations that parents deal with all the time. Morning routines. You can apply this to any daily routine, afternoon, evening, bedtime. Homework and following directions. We're going to compare how a neurotypical child and an ADHD or neurodivergent child might experience each situation, and you might be surprised by what's really happening beneath the surface. And by the end of this video, I'm going to give you some important tools that are going to help you with all 3. So let's start with the morning routine. This is one of the most common challenges that parents face: getting out the door. Imagine 2 children receive the exact same instructions. Wake up, eat breakfast, brush your teeth, get dressed, and then it's time to leave. Maybe you wake them up and you expect them to have the routine memorized by now. Depending on their age, if they're school age, they should know it. They do. Kids with and without ADHD have this morning routine memorized, and your neurotypical child is cruising through the routine without any interruptions and likely very few redirects from you. But for the child with ADHD, something very different can happen. They start getting dressed, then they notice a toy, or their attention gets pulled towards something happening in the room. Suddenly, that original task disappears. It's not in their mind anymore because it's not the most important thing, and they're not even thinking about it. And it's not because they don't care. It's not because they're refusing or they weren't listening and they're trying to be bad or non-compliant. If you came to them and you asked them, what are you supposed to be doing? They'll likely be able to tell you. But you're wondering, why do I have to tell you so many times? It's because their attention just shifted before the task was completed. And this is one example of how executive functioning challenges show up in everyday life. So, executive functions are the brain's management system. They help us plan, organize, prioritize, remember instructions, and stay focused long enough to be able to complete a task. And that's a lot. When those skills are weaker, even simple routines can become surprisingly difficult. This might not happen to you often, so let me give you a situation you can compare it to in your everyday life. Think about the last time you had a terrible night's sleep. You're tired, you're foggy, and someone comes and they hand you a list of 6 things to do. You nod, but 3 minutes later, you forgot half of them. On an ordinary day with a good night's sleep, you might remember, you might be less annoyed, and you might get right up and start working on that list. But today, with a poor night's sleep, your brain's task management center, it's not functioning at 100%. Now, imagine feeling that way every single morning. That's very similar to what it's like to have ADHD. Okay, now let's talk about homework. I see this with classwork when I'm working with my kiddos. You see this if you try to work with your kid on their homework after they get back from school. So you tell them to get started, you leave the room, you come back, and your child is staring at the ceiling. Their pencil's still in their hand, but it's not on the paper. You see their worksheet and it's untouched. Maybe they're picking apart the eraser to their brand new pencil. Maybe they made a puzzle out of their homework. And you're thinking to yourself, what am I going to do now? You're about to lose your mind because you're thinking, how do I explain this to the teacher? But stop. Let's understand their behavior so we can tackle and problem solve. Let me give you another adult comparison. Have you ever sat down to pay bills, but first you checked your email, then you saw a sale notification, then you remembered you have to buy dog food, and suddenly an hour is gone and the bills aren't paid? We call this stuff adulting, and we hate it. So we find better things to do when we should be adulting, but technically we're getting stuff done, so it's okay, right? If every incoming thought is equally urgent and we solved the urgency of the thought, closed the door on it, we feel great, even if it wasn't the task at hand. For an ADHD child, that's not once in a while. That's every single homework session. And they don't understand that picking apart the eraser on their brand new pencil is school supply violence. They accomplished an urgent task from a pop-up thought. They're okay with shredded homework because they aren't thinking about the fact that they can't do it later. They are thinking, look at my puzzle, Mom. When they're under the table, maybe they're on a mission, one of their very important missions, a thought that came up and they need to solve it. Kids with ADHD are some of the best critical thinkers and problem solvers, and we really should be harnessing this skill. But the reality is, we have to pay our bills, they have to do homework. So we have to build systems that help us. The strategy that helps in the classroom, we make the task smaller. We don't just say, do your math. We say, do one question, just one. Because once the brain sees a single step instead of the entire mountain, the air traffic controller can actually land the plane. And the last one, and this is one that causes most arguments at home, and it's actually the most frustrating for teachers at school too. Following multi-step directions. So, if I told you right now, put your shoes away, grab your jacket, and bring your lunchbox downstairs, could you remember all three? Most adults can. Most neurotypical kids can too, once they practice. But for a child with ADHD, by the time they picked up their shoes, steps 2 and 3 have already vanished. And it's not because they weren't listening. It's because working memory, the brain's temporary holding tank, fills up faster than a phone with a bunch of running apps. A parent tells their child 3 simple things. The child does the first one, then they wander off. The parent thinks, they're ignoring me. And the child thinks, I forgot and now I'm in trouble, and they don't know why. And that's the gap. That's the difference between won't and can't. Here's what I know about the kids that I work with and what's likely true about your kid. They're not lazy, they're not misbehaving, they're not choosing to ignore you. Most of the time, they're genuinely trying to do the right thing. They're just working with the brain that processes differently. They know when adults think they're not trying. They feel it and they start to believe it themselves. But when you understand the difference, when you see that it's an air traffic control problem, not a motivation problem or them trying to be defiant, you naturally want to provide them more support and encouragement instead of show your frustration. And let's be honest here, it is frustrating. Repeating yourself over and over is hard. Waiting to be heard requires patience, and we all run out. But your kid is trying, and once you understand that, you stop punishing the symptom and you start supporting the skill. A surprise landing always crashes the plane, but when you tell your child exactly which runway to aim for, they can land it. If this video helped you see your child differently, here's what I want you to do. First, I want you to share it. Send it to a parent who's exhausted. Send it to a teacher. Send it to a grandparent. Anyone who keeps saying, he just needs to pay attention. You never know whose perspective it might change. Perspective shifting is so important. Second, I put links in the description to strategies I mentioned, visual schedules, body doubling strategies, how important single step task cards are. Those are things I use in my classroom every day, and they work at home. If you want more videos like this, practical strategies that work that I use in my classroom that can transfer to home, please subscribe. I make these videos every week just for you.